This is all about sculpting. All you do is just sculpt the leg on the bodywork. And no, I don't wear a mask, never have. I was born with a rare heart condition. This would be considered a disease. Anyhow, I had to change my breathing manner to make my heart. And I can stand this all day long, be up my elbows in dust. And I won't hardly have no dust in my lungs. Probably have some, can't x-ray to tell, but they can be around me for 5 seconds and they're coughing and spitting and carrying on. So I don't know what they do to breathe. Yeah, with a mask on. All you do is sand and sculpt and sand and sculpt and sand and sculpt until you get it the way it's looking the way you want it to. I'm trying to feather this edge into that piece. Has a point on the front of it. I'm going to try and roll this around to make it look like the piece. That way when it bolts on, there's not much difference in it and the side of the body. Just take out the 36 screw scratch in it where she's sanding with this thing. So really all I'm doing now is just tightening up all the corners. I'm about to add a little more body filler to it because instead of look at it, it still has a little bit of a swoop to it that I don't like. Hard to bottle some people. So I know you're going to say, well, you don't want a car perfect. Well, car being perfect is something that I touched, not looking right. Good anyway. It's something I did and I knew I could fix it. In the process, make the bug the crap out of it.
We're almost ready to start priming the 32 today. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything blowed off, vacuumed out, because with all the Bondo work, fiberglass work, there's a lot of mess in the car that needs to be gotten out. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done today. Alright, well that's most of it vacuumed out. I'll just have to blow the car off, open the trunk, vacuum all that out, and then once I get all the dust out, I'm going to start taping it up on the inside, getting it ready for primer. Now that I've got all of the body filler and fiberglass dust off the floor, out of the car, I'm going to start taping up and back masking. First on the inside here of the dash, I'm going to tape all this up, cover up all those wiring, and then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to start taping up this back area, back mask it, tape up these hinges. So there was a ton of dust in this car that was no fun cleaning out, but now that it's most of the dust is out, we're going to go ahead and start prepping it, back masking it, and get the inside and outside ready for primer. Okay, we have started back masking the inside of the car. I was going to use paper to back mask the underneath the dash to cover up all the wiring and then cover up the back of the framing of the car too, but he decided it was better to use the plastic. It would cover more area, we'd use less tape, so that's what he started doing here, just putting some tape on there, and then we're just attaching the plastic to the tape. It'll drape across from the dash across the floorboard into the back of the car, and it will take a lot less time and materials to get it done this way. So we'll be shooting for primer next.
If you take your tape and back mask it to your body panels and let it hang beyond the body panel about 1 inch to 3/4 to 1 inch, the plastic's clingy, so it'll cling to the tape, and then you just gently rub your finger across it, and it makes a seal bond to itself. Paper pulls away, and paper has to be more manually stuck and harder to control, and you have to fold it and make sure that it all follows the contours. Plastic will just follow wherever you put it. This saves on material and saves on time, as you can see. But plastic also will have static electricity. As you drag it across the car, you'll create a static conductor, and it'll pull dust to it. So you have to be careful with that too. But the fastest and the cheapest way to do it is to take the blue painter's tape and back mask and just use the plastic to drape the whole area. That way you got more consistency cover. There's no gaps to have to worry about overspray getting under or getting in. And it makes for a cleaner job. And you got to tear it all out and put fresh paper in to paint the car, so it's cheaper to do it this way than it is to paper the car up twice. We used tan painter's tape we got from Lowe's. It's more like a meat packing tape. It's thinner. It don't have any type of longevity strands to it to where it follows or holds anything, so I wouldn't advise the tan tape. But the blue tape is a little bit thicker tape, and it does hold a whole lot better as far as structure wise, with it being a stiffer tape, so you don't have much chance of it ripping or not holding on to the area in which you're trying to cover with the paper. But that's just my take on it. Anything to try and help people out, save money, and do it a little bit easier way. down. See if we can get some color on it. Got all the body work done. That's what we're going to do. For some reason this side here is worse out of the mold than anything else. Don't really understand what the deal was there. The deck lid, I had to shave the edges of it off. Didn't mean to kick the camera. But it's all slick cut and ready to go. Got the edges rounded off on it. Got the gel coat cut back on it. Got the boss lady over here blowing the dirt off of it. See if we can throw a thick coat of primer on it and hide some of these imperfections. This thing has pinholes all in it. The tag on it said it was a B&D body. I've never heard of them before. Which has got to where anymore everybody makes fiberglass bodies. You see right there where the mold release with these little pinholes in it. Normally what I do is I take my primer and I'll spray a first heavy coat on it, let it tack, and then when it tacks I'll put a little thicker spray on it. Normally you'll get a little sag right there, but it don't matter, it'll sand out. That way it gives you somewhere to, enough primer material there to sand off to fill in those pits. When you're dealing with chemicals, you always got to remember there's a shrinkage to them, and then the sun makes them shrink even more once they get out in the UV rays. So you've always got to keep in mind when you're building materials, and even with Bondo, when you start piling it on, you have to keep in mind that it's going to shrink. Let's get some primer mixed up and see what we got. I'll show you a little trick on how to pour your paint, primer, no matter what it is, and not make a mess. After you get stirred, wipe the stirring stick off. Stick it in your mixing cup. Get you a nail and a hammer. Go on your label to where your part number ain't showing, to where you know what primer you still got you're using, and to where your identification on the back's not showing. And go in the valley right here of the can and poke you 4 or 5 nail holes. Like so. And when your lid goes back on, it seals those holes off so you hadn't damaged the can. But what that does, it lets the paint drain back into the can instead of sitting in this rim. Because when you go to nail the lid back on, with the paint sitting in the rim, you're going to spray it everywhere. But you can see what somebody's done, the guy I bought the shop from. But you spray it everywhere when you nail that lid back on, number one. Number two, the lid don't seal all the way back on if there's paint still stuck under there. Alright, this is the trick. Your hands may not be as big as mine, so you might have to use 2 hands, but anyhow. Aim your 4 holes towards your mixing cup Put the bottom of the can over the mixing cup and let the primer run down the side of it. We're mixing this 4-to-1. And when you get to the appropriate amount, stop pouring. Take your mixing stick, put it at the top of the can and rake downward. That rakes off all your excess primer and material. Take an old rag, and then the rest that you didn't get when you put your stirring stick at an angle, rake back upwards. That goes back in the can. No mess. Always hold on to all your old rags whenever you go to clean your gun and all out. That way you have something to clean up with. Another thing, I always use my base coats, paints, when you have a little left over. And my last coat of primer, once everything's set up, you pour just a little bit of your base coat in with your last spray of primer. That'll change the sheen of the primer color. So when you spray your last coat of primer on the car, it's going to have a different color to it than the other 2 coats or however many coats you put on it. And you can use that as a guide coat. So the spray does away with all the old chemicals that you have no use for no more. Number 1, and number 2, it gives you a guide coat that you don't have to buy in an aerosol can. And this hardener, your base coat dries with a reducer. This is a catalyst, so it's going to make the base coat harden in with this. It's not going to have any effect on the paint. I've tried it with single stage paints, because there again, single stage paint uses an activator to make it dry. But the only thing is your single stage paints don't always mix in with the primer, so you'll get a separation effect. But with base coats, I've never had any trouble with them over the years, no matter what primer I used, with it separating. Just a few tech tips. Let's get this mixed and we'll go out there and spray the car.
sanded the first coat of primer. We sprayed the gray primer on there first. Got everything covered, and then we went ahead and got it sanded. Got the second coat on there now. We sprayed the gray primer again, but we added a little bit of blue, which was just some excess paint we had. And that's going to serve as our guide coat. So as we sand, it'll take it back down to the original gray. And we'll be able to see any imperfections in there that we need to fix. So the body work turned out great. It looks pretty straight now on this driver's side. And the fiberglass and Bondo work done here to the front cowl. Turned out real slick, and then the build up we did back here to make the roof fit the car turned out really good also. So far we're happy with the results of the body work. We've got the trunk lid over here. Got it sprayed. So we'll start working on getting this sanded and the final prep done for paint.
And this is what I was talking about your guide coat. The blue is actually not an actual layer of primer. It's just I had a little bit of primer left in the gun. I mixed a little blue paint with it and I just frosted the whole car. So the blue is not actually like a coat of primer. It's just kind of misted over the top of it. But it acts the same way. See the gray right there? And since it does have the primer in it, if you don't want to sand it all out, if you get it slick enough to where it's where you want it, because there's a big low spot right there. So I'm not going to keep sanding to sand it out because it's just an imperfection in the fiberglass body. So, like I said before, this ain't going to be perfect by no stretch of imagination. But get it close enough, you can leave your blue on there. Because it does have primer in it. Or it is primer. She's got blue paint in it. Just a little tech tip. But the actual sanding dust you see is the gray primer when I'm sanding it back off. The blue is not that thick. But instead of throwing paint away, I've always done it that way.
Perfect.
Blocking it with 220. When I went over it with 320. I'm going to go over it again with 600. I'm going to wet sand it. And that's just what we do to get all the deep scratches and cross hatchings out of the primer so that it doesn't show up in the paint job. We did that on the 64 station wagon also, and it turned out really good. So I'm just using water and a little bit of Dawn dish soap. Just to keep the surface sandable. And I'm using a block on this 600 also.
People don't realize how many hours goes into doing one of these paint jobs. Just a basic paint job to make it look good. Ain't gotta be a show card, just anything that makes it worthwhile of giving it attention. Takes a lot of man hours.
And woman hours.
And woman hours. Thanks to all the subscribers to the channel. We're up to over 380 now. So we appreciate everybody who's liked and subscribed to videos. And feel free to comment. I think our youngest son's sending us subliminal messaging. He keeps saying we're doing a good job on his car he likes and wants to have. I think he's trying to tell us something. So at least we know he's watching the video.
That's right. We're getting a lot of views, just not everybody subscribing. So if everybody would subscribe, that would help us out a lot. We're just trying to reach 500 subscribers, so that's our goal. So we're getting there. Actually, faster than we thought we would. Stay tuned for the upcoming video of paint, interior, the engine build, and don't forget, like, share, comment, and subscribe.